Hey, happy November. November is going to have some really big stuff, and I'm really excited to talk about it with you. One of the things that's going to start happening in November, I really believe, because it's happening to me and it's starting to happen with people around me, is that things happening in the world, things happening in your life will not affect you as much. In other words, they won't hurt you as much. They won't, people going through a breakup might just go through a breakup for a minute, but it might not be as big of a deal energetically. It might not be this huge thing. You might hear a story of something happening in the world, and it might not rattle you the way it might have done a few years ago. And I feel that quite a bit of people are going to start having this. And the reason for that is that we've had a lot of patterns that are based on trauma in our body that I know you've spent the last couple of years releasing. And because you're releasing those, every pattern that's released is replaced with more and more of the true you, the you in the now. And as you're connected in the now, you start to feel more joy just because. Now, what I'm talking about is not complacency or being a person that doesn't care or have empathy for other people. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about repressing your emotions and just being like, screw it, I don't feel anything. I'm not talking about that. That's a first stage. And then a second stage is you're very empathetic and you feel everything. But one of the reasons we feel things is because things that trigger us are hitting things that are also inside. That's why so many things that trigger us are different for every person, right? A person can trigger one person, but not another, which means the factor is not that person outside, but it's what it's hitting inside. And I've done this work so long, I've noticed that a trigger for a person is hitting something. There's a thing that is annoying about this person to the person, but the extra pain is because it's reminding them of something from before that incident. So, as we've been doing this work, as life has given the world so much to go within about, we have been clearing the trauma in our bodies. And a lot of people have. And some people have been holding on more and more to the trauma, right? So, some of those people are feeling number and number. But there's also people that are doing the work, that are opening up, that are crying often or releasing often or moving to a higher state or letting go of things that don't align. And because of that, the patterns that were triggered start to leave and they're replaced by more and more joy just because. And as you're feeling more and more joy just because you're less triggered by things that are happening on the external, even in your personal life, you could lose a job, but it doesn't hit you the same way, right? Because you start to realize you are the light in your life. You are the happiness. There's nothing outside of you that is. And as you do this work, you start to move up and up more and more, and things don't trigger you the same, which also, by the way, causes things to change on the external. The world outside of you is mirroring you. So the more you start to feel the wholeness of what you are, and the more that spreads to the all that isness, you start to discover that the world is starting to mirror that too. You're seeing a lot of dark things happening right now, and then they disappear, they dissolve, they leave because they're getting more and more seen. That's the same as what's going on with you, right? You saw something, you saw a pattern you had, you see the darkness, and then it goes away, you cry it out, and you're starting to see the result of that. You're starting to see new things that you also like things that you never thought you liked, because you're becoming a literal different person. The more and more you move to this connection with yourself, and the more and more you feel this freedom, the more and more you discover things. You might hear music in a new way or like things in a totally different way than you used to, and go, wow, that sounds amazing, or that looks amazing, or that's a different type of person that I'm attracted to than I would have ever been attracted to, because the patterns used to be what caused you to want the things that you wanted. And since a lot of those patterns are gone, you're going to find that new things bring you joy, but you're going to also find that the joy is now within you. And that's happened to some people on the planet in the past, or some people that have been ahead of the game and connected to themselves big time and found that. But now it's starting to happen to a lot of people that have been doing inner work, people that have been meditating, people that let go of things that didn't align, people that were forced to in the last 2 years, that release things that didn't align with them, are moving to a place with everything they released, and everything they released about themselves are falling off. And I believe as November keeps going, especially in like the second half of November, you might be one of the people that starts to feel like, why do I feel like everything's okay, even though on the external they're not? I used to be so bothered by the external, but now I'm like, even though the external's still happening, I'm okay. And then eventually life will mirror that. You're okay, life's okay. As you start to be whole as is, you won't believe what starts to come into your life, but you won't care because the wholeness is in you. But you'll be matched by that same wholeness, relationship wise, or friendship wise, or abundance wise, everything. Because the truth is, life is mirroring you, and you've spent a couple years doing a lot of work. And if you know what I'm talking about right now, please feel free to share in the comments, because I'd love for people to see they're not alone. Why do I feel like even though there's deep rooted pain, there's also a little bit more of a constant, always happening, everything's okay. Even if you feel the pain, even if something's freaking out, there's another you that has a little bit of knowing that everything's okay. That's because your body is being blown open into the oneness of the all that is. That's because there's a part of you that's starting to understand you're more than that small separate self. So since you're more than that, you're starting to feel more that even when the small self is freaking out, there's a bigger self that's here that you're connected to. This is why November could be profound. And as you let go of those attachments, some things are also going to fall apart bigger, but you'll have that knowing everything's okay. And a lot of those things that are falling apart are not natural. They're not things that were supposed to be here. They're things that don't align. They're control, their manipulation, their fear, they're all these things. There's ways that we live that were outside of what nature wanted. And so those patterns are falling on the external, and those patterns are falling out of you on the internal. And you're starting to move from being the pattern you developed in your childhood to God's kid, the now's kid, the universe's kid. You came through your parents, but you're the all that isness, and you're everything. And you're starting to discover that. And November is going to be huge, because hopefully what I'm saying will bring an awareness to what's happening, because sometimes people have that and they think, is something wrong with me? No, 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 no. This is actually more and more the truth of how you're supposed to live in the now, totally connected, feeling that wholeness, understanding everything's okay. So even when you have a little bit of a fall apart, even if it's a loud freak out, you have some connection that says everything's okay. So there might still be more falling off, there might still be more freakouts, but there's another you that's just present with it, that goes, I know everything's fine. And the world mirrors you, as I said. So you're going to start to see that happening around you. You're going to start to see other people seeing that. You're going to be an example for them. And you're going to watch as the everything's fineness, everything's okay. It's not about getting somewhere else. It's not about fixing somewhere else. It's about everything's okay. And you'll watch as everything that's not right will start to fix itself and become whole. So November is actually magic, even though in some places, in a lot of places, it doesn't look like it. It's removing what needs to come to light. It's removing the people that were controlling us. It's showing the world the darkness that's here, so we can learn to see it, feel it, and then release it through our own acceptance that that's here. And then watch as our magnifying glass moves bigger and bigger and bigger, how we see everything through the now versus the small story, that small separate self with your little, you're just one of 8 billion people with no power. No, no, no. Those 8 billion people are you. You're hearing your self talk right now. And I'm telling me right now, November is about your expansion. Just let go of the things that keep your small self alive more and more, and watch as you discover a truth that opens up in both inside of you and inside the whole world. Love you. Happy November.